Lucy Williamson, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Well, I'm joined now by Michael Bosecue in Vancouver. Michael is Global Affairs Analyst and also Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council. Also, he was a former spokesperson for UNICEF covering the West Bank and Gaza. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsday again this morning. Firstly, if I could get your reaction to the UN Security Council's vote being postponed.
Well, I guess it could be a good sign because diplomats are still intent on hammering something out that will be palatable to the United States. My fear, Mariko, is that it will be watered down so much that it will be basically meaningless. So, this binding resolution is what's really needed, I think, to put it into the heads of the Israelis that the world, the international community, is very serious, is very just shocked at the deplorable video and numbers coming out of Gaza. I will tell you one thing, though. I've seen some of the draft wording, and it's kind of shockingly similar to what the Russian foreign minister called for a few days ago, which was basically cessation of hostilities and urgently resolve all humanitarian problems. So I guess that tells us that they're trying to make something where none of the members will be tempted to use their veto power.
And as we heard in Lucy's report, the United States calling on Israel to make the war more surgical, while a senior UK lawmaker also saying that Israel has gone beyond self-defense. So increasingly, we are seeing the tone shifting.
We are seeing the tone shifting, although people like myself who have worked in Gaza, who we think of these women and children every day as numbers creep towards 20,000. It could be a lot higher than that once searches in the rubble are completed. There's much stronger language that could be used. I think that Mr. Biden could pick up the phone actually immediately and tell Mr. Netanyahu to order a stop to what's going on. And Mariko, I would also remind you of something Mr. Austin said the other day, and that is that if you continue this type of bombing on civilians, that you could deliver them into the arms of the enemy by increasing radicalization. And hence he said that you could replace a tactical victory with a strategic defeat. This is something that I said on Israeli television when I was in Israel recently, is that they do risk not only more diplomatic isolation by what they're doing in Gaza, but also that they could increase the radicalization of youth. I mean, imagine how you would feel as a child who luckily survives this, but you wake up with no mother and father, no brothers and sisters, no friends. This is the situation that is playing out day by day.
And Michael, we also saw the video of elderly hostages, and it is estimated that still more than 100 of them are held in Gaza. Negotiations are ongoing to secure their release.
Yeah, and it's very important, of course, to Israelis, to the families, that these hostages are released. I think there's a heck of a lot more pressure on Mr. Netanyahu to order the Israeli Defense Forces to be much more careful in their operation in Gaza. I think the way to do this, to get the release, is to do that humanitarian ceasefire and then have negotiations happen and use that pause to bring more aid into Gaza. You know, it's just mind-boggling that, for example, in Ukraine, the biggest missiles and rockets the Russians are using are 250 to 500 pounds, whereas in Gaza, the Israelis in much more densely populated areas are using 1,000, 2,000 pound bombs with massive civilian casualties. This has to stop.
Michael Bosecue, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday, and we'll have more on those hostages later in the program as well. Let's now take a look at some other stories as in the headlines for you. And the United States has announced plans to form an international coalition to protect merchant shipping in the Red Sea. The assaults by rebels based in Yemen have been taking place since the conflict started in Gaza, and they are starting to disrupt global maritime trade. The oil giant BP announced on Monday